Hi, I'm Shalina Tobin, aka Posh Nosh Gal. Today I'm joined by the fabulous Chef Vivek Singh. Alongside his 5 London restaurants, he makes regular appearances on TV, has written a multitude of cookbooks, and is considered one of the leading authorities on Indian cuisine in the UK. Hi, Chef Vivek, how are you?
Shalina, thank you very much. What an intro that was. Thank you.
Well, you deserve it, absolutely. Um, so tell me, how are you spending your time during lockdown these days?
Right. How are you spending? I'm spending my time pretty much like anybody else, but I think the difference being that I never had this time before this in my life. I never had a gap year or, kind of a break like this. So I just didn't know in the beginning how to feel about it. And there were a couple of days of really being, unsettled, thinking, what am I doing in the house? I need to be in my one of the 7 meetings every day, and what have you, or be in some kitchen to cook, whatever. But then you quickly become used to it, and I think, as they say, when you can't go out, you go in. So I looked around my place, and I don't know if you can see any of the books. I mean, I got
Absolutely.
hundreds of books that some of them I'd barely opened, maybe opened once, never got around to reading. So I got into reading, and then I thought a little bit more about what I wanted to do. And like everybody else, I think everybody else must be the same. You want to do everything
Yeah.
that you've not done. So, your yoga, your meditation, your exercise, your painting, your music. And I thought I might even sort of um, get stuck in and learn to play the piano, just simply download another app and learn how to do yoga and all that. So yeah, but I thankfully got all of that out of my system very quickly. And I realized, I couldn't do a lot of stuff out of apps, but I could do one without any apps and without any books, and that was cooking. So I started cooking for the kids, and they started sort of, I think in the beginning they were really excited, as was my wife. She kind of loved the fact she's still working, by the way. So she loved the fact that I was cooking up, and it's cooking, cleaning, whatever in the house. And then until one day they said, "Well, you know what? It's great, but whenever this lockdown ends, it's a question of more of when than if.
Yeah.
When the lockdown ends, we need to be able to get out of the door. So you will stop feeding us like this." But anyway, I still cook, and we were having a great time. I'm finding it quite therapeutic, actually, to try and connect with a lot of the stuff that I missed out on.
Absolutely. And do your kids join you with the cooking?
Yeah, they do from time to time. Sometimes they help me record some of the videos for my Instagram and stuff. But it's just great fun. And I'd much rather they did the stuff that we don't like to do. The chores in the house and the garden and what. There you go. We'll get around to that.
Well, you must be missing your sport actually, because there's nothing on at the moment.
Actually, there's no sport whatsoever.
Yeah.
No cricket, nowhere. I mean, actually, that's it is hard, but you think about it, it's probably the right thing to, you know, you can't have sport on.
Of course not. Of course not. It doesn't stop us from missing it though, missing the things
True.
that we love.
Yes, that's so true. In the same way, I totally get it. I get it completely that restaurants are closed, and they're closed for a very good reason. But
Mhm.
that doesn't stop us from missing restaurants either.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I love eating out, and I'm missing it absolutely terribly. And my husband's getting bored of my cooking, I think. So yeah, we're both missing it a lot.
The repertoire, yeah, you just realize that you need to have more of a repertoire. But
Yeah.
I follow your Instagram, and actually you do you do recreate recipes from other people's feeds quite a lot, and they look beautiful, by the way.
Yes, I'm just promoting other chefs at the moment, and I'm sharing their fabulous recipes, and I'm trying them out myself. So yeah, it is quite fun. I'm getting very hands-on in the kitchen, which is very unlike me to do. I'm very simple. I like a salad, and that's pretty much it. So, are you creating recipes yourself for the restaurants, or?
Yes, I mean, not so much sort of creating as in I am certainly looking very hard at all of our menus and all of our restaurants. And, not to say that I'm revisiting the ethos or the principle of it, but I am digging deep and looking at everything. And I mean, this is a combination of two things. Part of whatever was good before will still continue to be good in the future. There's no question about it. Whether that's going to be good enough is another question altogether.
Right.
And in some of the restaurants, I mean, one of the restaurants we just about completed 19 years before the lockdown, and I have been sort of really looking forward to celebrating its 20 at the Cinema Club in the Westminster Library. And when you've been kind of running a kitchen, and the team and the brigade has become really, it's a well-oiled machine, and you can do a lot, and you have dishes you carrying and stuff. And I this opportunity has given me an opportunity to really look at everything and say, do I really need this? Do we really need all of this?
Right.
Um, and so at the moment, what we're having between me and some of my other chefs, and we're all sort of is keeping in touch casually and voluntarily, and um, just keeping our minds kind of ticking over. And we are looking at and asking very tough questions of every dish, every menu,
Right.
thinking, does it need to be? So it's not so much about creating new things. I mean, there will be new things coming out of the fact that, we will be dropping some of the old dishes. I totally, in fact, in some cases, I'm actually recreating dishes that may have been cooked, 5, 6, 700 years ago. So, it's not about just looking ahead. It's actually looking back and trying to draw inspiration from that. Because when people reopen, there will be 17 or 1,000 restaurants that will open on the same day, whatever it is.
Of
I
course.
think we need to have a really different narrative of what we believe in.
And in which ways do you feel that the current crisis will impact the restaurant industry in the long term? I mean, do you feel like they will, I mean, a lot of them started doing online deliveries. Do you think that they
Yeah,
will move more into that, or pull away from it, or just close down entirely? What's your opinion on that?
I think online, not online, but so delivery per se is going to be the new reality of tomorrow. There's no question about that. Restaurants, just on their own legs, just by serving people within their premises, I don't think that's a model that's going to survive.
Mm.
However, we can't take our eyes off the fact that restaurants will still need to be able to function as places where people come to eat in, dine in. Dine out can never become a complete substitute of that. I mean, for all the reasons that we know ourselves, you dying to go out and eat in a restaurant. Last night, I was speaking to my wife, and she asked me, "What is the one thing that you would do as soon as the lockdown's lifted?" And I couldn't think of anything, so I asked her, "What do you think?" And she said, "I'm really missing the socializing, so I would just run to a restaurant as soon as it opens. Not because you can't get the food; it's just because of everything else that it stands for." And I think restaurants will need to survive in that. It's okay for you to have 80% of your revenue from dine-in customers and to
Mm.
offset 20% of that from deliveries or takeaways. But you can't continue to pay the rents that you do and have the buildings that you do and the decor and the design and the staff and everything,
Right.
all of that just to do deliveries. So restaurants, for them to remain relevant and remain in survival mode, they need to be able to work as dine-in establishments. I think it's not going to be easy. There
Yeah.
is no easy way. There will be a major shift, and every restaurant, um, and for a change, I think this time around, the more successful you were pre-close down, the harder you will find post, because the busier you were, the more successful financially and otherwise you were, I think you'll find yourself the hardest hit. So every restaurant and every restaurateur will need to kind of go back, dig deep, and try and soul search and find, what is their vision and what is their purpose, really. I think each one of us will have to find our own narrative.
Yes. And had you also done the deliveries as well for your restaurants, or? or was it?
Of the 5 of my restaurants, we had delivery in one.
Okay.
And it was a very small proportion of our offering anyway. So when the whole thing closed down, it was just not worth opening up one restaurant
Right.
for purposes of delivery or takeaway.
Okay.
And again, you have to think about it. At the time when we closed for the reasons that the safety of our staff and the well-being of our customers and everything else. And you thought about who do you say and how do you say to any staff member that you're expendable? Because really it wasn't the most key thing at the time. So we closed everything, and when the time is right, we'll reopen things back. But delivery will certainly be part of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you've got a few restaurants, and you do a lot of TV work as well. So, do you consider yourself primarily a businessman now, or do you still consider yourself chef first?
Oh, always a chef first. Yeah, I mean, I think you'll find many people who do much better business than I do, or but I have to think of everything as a starting point, and but for my own sanity, and the reasons for me doing what I do is I love being a chef, I love cooking, I love creating, I love dreaming up recipes and menus, and of course with time, and progression, there are other roles that you acquire, and perhaps running the business is one of them. But then there are several others. I think of myself as a teacher, as somebody who teaches young people how to cook, or creates opportunity for other young people who may want to pursue chefing as a career. Then you think of yourself as an ambassador. Sometimes you just want to tell the story of the land that you come from, and just say to people all the time, constantly trying to bring to their attention and their front of the mind, that there is so much more to Indian food than most people know, even now. So there are all these different roles and different things that help you think of your role in possibly more ways than it is really, is important, really.
I mean, your businesses have been very successful. What's been your biggest challenge to date?
I think the biggest challenge is what lies ahead. I have to say that when we opened in 2001, maybe 4 or 5 months into opening, we had 9/11. At the time, people thought that was the worst thing that could happen, from a travel perspective, from a stability, confidence, and every which way you can look at it, it looked like that was the worst time possible. You tide it over all that. You look ahead. The time when I opened my second restaurant, it was 3 weeks after the collapse of Lehman Brothers in the city. And I opened the restaurant in the city at the peak of its market. So that was as hard as one can remember. But I think the biggest challenge, to not just to myself and to our business, but to our entire generation of restaurateurs and chefs, is going to be what lies ahead in the next few weeks, and we'll have a bit more clarity. But I think this is, again, it's one of those things that's going to test you and try you and stretch you. But I don't think it's unsurmountable, because people and businesses with purpose will find a way forward.
Well, what you've just shared, I mean, that's a story of real endurance. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to open a restaurant?
I think I'd say to anybody who wants to open a restaurant is, get into restaurants if you love cooking or feeding or serving or hospitality or whatever it is. Don't get into restaurants because you want to set up a business and sell it on, and move on and make millions, because that's not what you do in this industry. You get into it because you love cooking or love feeding or love serving. And in the absence of that love, this is just not the business to get into.
So speaking of love, who's been your biggest inspiration?
I mean, I've had over the years, and probably 1993 to now, so about close to 30 years, 26, 27 years, working different places, whether it's hotels where I began in India, or, doing restaurants here. I've had so many friends and mentors and people that have, and sometimes it's not just about how much time you spend with people, because you can have people who, um, sort of, you spend a very short amount of time with, but they've had a phenomenal impact on your careers and the way you think about
Yeah.
it. So I've learned from chefs that I've never worked professionally with. I learned so much from Eric Chavot, who was a 2 Michelin star French chef, and I like to believe that we became friends and we continue to remain friends because we could bounce ideas off each other, not just cooking related, but about life, about how to treat people and all of that. I had a great mentor in the form of Vikram Oberoi at the Oberoi hotels. He was my general manager at the Rajvilas Hotel, and I think he is the one who probably taught me about the importance of the pursuit of excellence, because he just he would look at everything and how can we make this excellent, how can we make this better, and so this whole tireless pursuit of excellence and not settling for perfection was like, perfection is vanity, it's the ultimate death, and so you constantly I mean, there's so many people. Some taught me the value of evolution and to constantly challenge boundaries and just not stand still. And I think all of these learnings over the years have stood me in good stead when it came to. And I think my current thinking about how the world of restaurants and food is going to look post reopening,
Mhm.
it gives me a great deal of comfort that with the challenges that we had 19 years ago and we managed to do what we did, I'm pretty damn sure when we come out the other side, we will find a different purpose for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love your positivity about that, though. But you're actually an inspiration to a lot of others, and you're working with a lot of charities that mainly promote education and self-development for young people, as you mentioned earlier on. How did you get into that?
Look, I mean, I, I firmly believe in opportunity, in the sense that no matter, I don't think there are many industries and there are many businesses that create opportunity like restaurants or hospitality does, for that matter. No matter where you come from, as long as you have a certain sense of common sense and empathy for others, and a desire to succeed, and just a little bit of ambition, perhaps a big heart. Um, Most people can, no matter where they come from, can succeed. And I think in that sense, this industry, hospitality per se, is very, very democratic. It's very open. So you could be from a very wealthy background, or you could be from nowhere, or you could be from a small town. But as long as you're prepared to learn, and it does that. I had that. I had those opportunities. I went from a really small town into hotel school and got an opportunity to work at Oberoi Hotels. It was the best job going at the time, and I always believed that it didn't matter where you come from, or what you had behind you. It was what you had inside you, and how badly you wanted something, that people could succeed. And I wanted to make it very clear from the very beginning to my teams at the Cinnamon Collection that we would value seed over crop.
Yeah.
So if we saw a really good seed somewhere and we think, we can make something out of it, and, we'll go and grow our own crops. And yeah, I've been very lucky. It's paid off really well for me, because I have a fantastic, you know, team of chefs. All of my head chefs are homegrown. The minimum anybody who's worked with me is 12 years. The maximum they've worked with me is 19, 20 years. So it's
Wow.
amazing. We have a brilliant team spirit that way, and it's stood me in really good stead. And I realized that when we were doing restaurants, and we were kind of, we got involved in Action Against Hunger very early on. And when they asked me to become an ambassador, I kind of thought, can I do this? Can I not? Do I have the bandwidth? Because I was working pretty long hours, doing 6 days a week and work. And then I thought to myself, if I really took the view that I will make everything myself, and I'll get all the money and all the saving and all the sweets and all the good stuff for myself, and then for my family, and then I will think of what I need to do for charity. Life doesn't work like that. So you've got to be able to find a way of doing all of those things all at the same time. And
Yeah.
so that's how the charity thing worked. And I took a view that, I could set aside a couple of hours a week to just think about stuff, or, speak to somebody or give them advice if they wanted. And it just worked. So one thing led to another. And I'm very pleased and proud that, we've got, and it's not just give, give, give. Huh? We've also got a lot in return.
Yeah.
So of the apprenticeship training program that I ran, I think I still got, we had 14 people. I think at the moment, I still got about 6 of them work with me in the restaurants, and they have been with us anything between 8 or 10 years. So, that's a really good outcome.
It's a testament to the way you work. It's fabulous. People obviously, they love working with you and your work ethic, so they stay with you for a long time. And actually,
Yeah.
recently, I just saw your video on Instagram, you supporting the NHS. It's the
That's right. Hospitality for
heroes. That was fantastic. I love that paranta making in the garden.
Yeah, I love doing that too. I mean, that was, if you think about it, I don't know how much it raised, but the last time I checked, I think it had raised about £28,000. I mean,
Yes.
this is such a simple idea.
Yes.
So I didn't come up with it. Whoever came up with it, but all I did was I played along. It's wonderful, right? I mean, people get to see some new recipes and so many different chefs and people,
Yeah.
and in the process, they ended up raising £28,000. I mean, that coming from an industry that is so badly hurting right now.
Yes.
I'm just pleased that I could help.
Well, it's one of those moments where everyone just comes together, and we're
Yeah,
all each
yeah.
other
I'm
and
sure we're seeing that. You're so correct about that. And this is, it's this. We're seeing so much good stuff come out of this hard times. I just hope we keep at it.
So, the most memorable occasion in your restaurant's history?
Wow. Oh, the most memorable occasion in restaurant's history. That's a tough one. Because I couldn't say, oh, well, we fed so and so, and that was amazing. But we fed pretty much anybody who was anybody in recent British history has come and ate in one of our restaurants.
Bill Clinton was one of them.
I beg your pardon?
You fed Bill Clinton as well.
Oh, that was a long thing. Yeah, that was before I came.
Time ago.
Yeah, that was Rajvilas in
Oh,
Jaipur.
that was in India.
Yeah, that was in India, correct.
Okay.
And then up here, when Chelsea used to go to university in Britain, she used to come quite a lot to the cinema club. I don't know. I probably, if I had to pick one moment, and I think, and it's not probably such a big thing. It isn't a Hugh Grant or a Bill Nighy moment, or any of those sort of big celebrity moments. But I remember it must have been 2005. I had a call, late lunch service, and the reception said, "Look, there's a call from the Home Office, and they really want to, speak to you." And I'm like, "Why? I'm running lunch service down." So the call was from the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Dr. John Reid at the time. I mean, he's still a regular. He's still Dr. John Reid was the second most important person in the government at the time. I mean, other than Tony Blair and maybe one or two others, he was the only one who had bodyguards. That, if that makes any sense to you.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was his office, and she said, "Dr. Reid would like to speak to you." And I said, "Oh, well, okay." So here I was, and he was on the other end of the phone, and he's saying, "Look, Chef, I know you change your menus very often. I know you don't keep the same dishes on, but I had a massive request. I'm bringing 16 people on one night, in a few weeks' time, and I was wondering if there's any chance I could have the old Delhi style butter chicken. I know it's not on the menu. Please, may I?" And I was so touched by it, because I thought, look, I used to make things difficult for people, because I just thought I didn't want people to be able to get anything, anytime, whatever. But I also had come from India, right? Where even a small-time police officer, if he arrived at the hotel, he could literally rewrite the menu and would ask for anything. And, how dare you not give it to him? Here, possibly one of the top two, top three most, important people in the country was calling me up personally at the end of a lunch service, requesting to have some butter chicken,
That's so
probably 3 weeks down the line. I thought that was, I had seriously arrived.
that's quite cute. So there is actually, you mentioned this earlier on. You've got a very memorable occasion. What's coming up? You've got your
Okay.
20th anniversary of the Cinnamon Club in March 2021. I mean, that's such an incredible milestone, to remain popular and so current over the years. How are you going to celebrate?
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to celebrate, but it is going to be possibly. I think, if you ask me after that occasion, you ask me what was the highlight, I would have said 20 years, because I think it makes all my gray hair worth it. Worth it.
I don't see it.
You can't see it. No, I have absolutely loved. It's not just about. It doesn't feel like 19 odd years to me. I still feel like I was a young rookie who came in to open the Cinnamon Club. I still run it with the same passion, the same values, and the same kind of
Why it's still going.
Sorry.
That's why it's still going.
No, it's probably, yeah, you're right. I'm really proud about it, that it isn't just a case of a restaurant surviving, but here it is, it's thriving, and it was thriving just before we closed down for for the lockdown. But here you are, you're not just sort of surviving, but actually thriving and still current and still relevant. And I think that London is a proper hotspot for restaurants with 17, 18, God knows how many thousand restaurants that we have in this country. You could literally count on your fingertips how many restaurants you know of or you think of that have been around for over 20 years. Not that many, have they? So really proud of that. And I think we will definitely see the other side of this lockdown.
Yeah.
And on the other side, I think we should have massive, massive celebrations.
Well, congratulations to you.
No, thank you. Congratulations, a little bit premature.
Well, we haven't got long to go. We've just got a little.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You've got to be careful for what you wish for. A few months ago, I was kind of arguing, and I was kind of with my team, and I was saying that would it not be great to have another restaurant, even just small, a small one, but just open another restaurant this year. For this year, and and for whatever reason, so no, maybe not, because it'll take our eyes off the 20th preparation and whatever.
Yeah.
And so we had this conversation, and I left it at that. And I think you've got to be careful for what you wish for, because I wanted to open one restaurant, and now whenever this lockdown ends, I'm going to have to open 5. So. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck. I'm sure you'll make a success of it.
Thank you very much.
So the theme of your branding is heavily based on cinnamon. Tell me how that came about.
The name Cinnamon Club was actually in the minds of people even before I came on board. And there are so many stories around that. It's not because cinnamon is particularly a preferred spice in Indian cuisine and all of that, but actually, if you think about it, the name Cinnamon Club just had a ring, and it was the club, and this must have been 22, 23 years ago. So long, we're going back sort of, way over 20. But when I think about it, I think it was such a great choice, even though I can't take any credit for it. It was a great choice because here is cinnamon that's completely internationally understood and appreciated, never a hero spice, but in there and understood in so many different cultures. Yeah. So truly international spice, even before the day of international Indian restaurants. So it was rather, it was fortuitous, for want of a better description.
And which other cuisines influence your cooking?
I think now everything influences, because I believe that much like anything else in life, food doesn't exist in a vacuum. And it is very much a result of everything else that's going around you. In fact, I believe that, even my cooking or the cooking of India, when I came in to UK 20 years ago, and the way British people understood Indian food was so different, because that's not how British people understood Indian food. Was probably stuck in a time warp. It wasn't how we cooked or ate in India then.
Yeah.
So, even in India, we were using baby corns and, colored peppers and all these new influences, and, were coming into our cuisine and was changing it, every day without us even noticing. It's so subtle. It's an everyday thing. So, so therefore my thinking was that my cooking at the Cinnamon Club was going to encompass the best of both worlds. Here I was going to try and draw inspiration from traditional Indian spicing and traditional Indian cooking techniques, but combine that with the very best local seasonal produce that money could buy. I happened to be in Britain, where it was fantastic seafood and fish and lamb and meat and game and all of that wonderful stuff that we never could have dreamt of in India. And therefore, it was never going to be a case of me trying to fly frozen fish or frozen meat from halfway across the planet. It was not going to happen. Because I think for us, that sort of showing that kind of an open-mindedness was at the very core of what we believed in as chefs. So that was the thinking then. And now we draw inspiration from anything and everything. So I have a dish of a cured salmon carpaccio with a caramel jhalmuri. Jhalmuri is a very traditional Bengali street food that I used to eat as a child when I went to school there, and it's a very sort of it's a two-penny worth. But then that combines with a Shetland organic salmon that we cure ourselves, and it goes on the plate with a bit of a green pea wasabi chutney. So it is wasabi. I say wasabi. It's not. There's no wasabi in it. It's a green pea and mustard chutney that my mother used to make in the eastern part of the country. And there you go. You got something that Japanese people think of their own, salmon and wasabi. Scandinavian people who completely love fish and mustard together, as do Indians, by the way. And the British love for cured fish. There you go. It ticks so many boxes. So I like to think of my inspiration as, from anywhere and everywhere.
So taking you all the way back to your very first job, which was dismantling the carburetor of a car, if asked again, do you think you'd be able to do it?
I'll tell you what, it wasn't my first job, because my first job might have been carrying tea for the mechanics.
Okay.
Or so perhaps changing tires, and all of that stuff, because that was progression. And then I got to that point where I was able to dismantle a carburetor and clean it with petrol. So it was progression. Please don't call it my first job. It was
Sorry.
But I have to compliment you on your research, because not many people know that. Could I do that? Yeah, I do the chefing equivalent of that. And if the chefing equivalent of that is picking 13 boxes of spinach in one shift, or peeling 2 bags of onions, that's 80 kilos, by the way, of onions, or going to the dishwash or pot wash and cleaning up some pots. Yeah, I'll do that. I find that incredibly therapeutic, and also it gives me a lot of understanding. But it creates an accessibility with my team that if it's not beneath me to do, then it should be beneath no one to do, and I do believe that. So it does bring the team together in brilliant ways.
So, what was the moment that you realized you wanted to be a chef?
The moment that I realized that I wanted to be the chef, it wasn't so much that moment. I think I was already a chef when I had that moment that I wanted to be a chef for the rest of my life. Okay. I think that happened more because, prior to that, hotel school, I was, like I said, I was very fortunate, and I was picked at the Oberoi chef's training program, which is one of the best jobs going and one of the best paid jobs as well. So yeah, that was a no-brainer, and kind of or rather rabbit in headlights, lucky to be chosen, for that. I did that for 2 years. I did the hotel school, did the chef's training, loved all that. But I was still going about the motions of being a chef in the mold of being a five-star hotel chef. After a certain few years, you don't cook anymore. All you do is you coordinate orders, you plan production, you have teams to do all that stuff. And I was pretty much headed on that path until one day I came across White Heat by Marco Pierre White. And a friend of mine, who sadly is no more, him and I, we read the book together. And we looked at each other and we said, gosh, that's what we want to be and do the rest of our lives. So it became quite clear to me that I wanted to run restaurants. I did not want to become, kind of a senior hotel chef. And so I think that was my moment of truth when I realized that I wanted to continue to be a chef for the rest of my life.
Right.
It was 1995.
And what was it that inspired you to come to the UK?
Again, I think UK chose me almost as much as I chose UK, because having worked at the Oberoi hotels for about 7 or 8 years, and I had quite a few roles, and 8 years is quite a long time, by the way. You become quite senior in those years. I must have had scores of job offers from different international opportunities all the time. I think the the one other that I had other than London was to open a restaurant in Antwerp, in Belgium. I don't know if you're familiar. Apparently, it's the second largest diamond cutting center in the world after Surat. So they have lots of Gujarati and Sindhi population.
Right.
And they love their Indian food. And, I had an offer to open an Indian restaurant there, which I have, if I remember it, I must have considered it, pretty well. And then I had a number of offers from the UK, whereas I looked at it and I saw, and I think, the love and the affection and the understanding for Indian food and the appetite for Indian food was evident to me. Even I'm talking about pre-internet, days. We had internet. You could look up menus in restaurants, but there wasn't a lot of information, not like now. But even then, it was evident, the love and the affection, the British affinity for Indian food was really evident. And I thought that was a fantastic thing, because I wouldn't have to teach people what a chicken tikka and naan bread was.
Right.
So that was my thinking about, London was exciting for me. But I have to say, Cinnamon Club I chose, because when I was sent the plans for Cinnamon Club, I said, look, this is an opportunity, a clean slate for me to do all the mad things that I always wanted to do and nobody would let me do in India.
Right.
Right reason. Because I don't think the country was ready for this kind of food then. And it wasn't necessary. It wasn't needed or required. But Cinnamon Club was that blank canvas that would allow me to do everything. Every stupid idea in my head, I could put on a plate and it would go. So, it would work.
So where do you consider home? Do you consider India still home, or in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, I think of myself as a truly global citizen. I think I live everywhere, I exist everywhere, and I belong everywhere. My mother still lives in India. I go back every year, except this year so far.
Right.
Well, this is under unusual circumstances, but I go every year, and in fact, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. I have active family and family connections and friends back in India. As well as, there is something called, I don't know whether you understand, place of work, not an office, but a karma bhumi. And I think London, I think of London as my place of work,
Okay.
where lies actually, if not all, most of my work and most of the body of my work sits here in this wonderful city, which has just so much. It's got such a big heart and so many. It just accepts everything, right? It takes everything from all over the world. And culturally, culinary wise, as well as every other way that you can think of. It's a real privilege to be able to coexist, no?
Absolutely, it's brilliant. So when the world returns to normal again and lockdown is lifted, so you'll be going back to India to see your mother. And
Yes, I will be there.
and what are the next big things that we can see from you?
Right. So, I wouldn't say I. Somebody said to me when we went into lockdown, she said, "Oh, yeah, that could be enough. Should be for another book." But then 6 books down, I don't think that's just. It's not. I think my my immediate focus is going to be when things return to normal is to come back bigger and stronger and um, than ever with all of the 5 restaurants that we were running with, and so to find that we're still as relevant, still as kind of alive and thinking in our heads, and with whatever we bring in, we're not going to come back with the same menus, that's for sure. So the menus are going to be different, and that's what the whole creative and the curative process is all about. So
Yeah.
that's what's happening now, and then hopefully in less than 6 months from then, I'll be the big old granddaddy of a 20-year-old restaurant.
Can't wait. We're very excited for you. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Really appreciate your time. Guys, if you want to keep up to date with Chef Vivek Singh, just follow him on Instagram, and I'm at Posh Nosh Gal. Thank you, Vivek. Take care.